Funky with it.
I can feel it.
Every single African American we've interviewed said they had to moderate their behavior so they weren't intimidating.
I had a very candid conversation with one of the individuals who passed me this information. He broke it down. You're big, you're black, with a deep voice. You're intimidating. And if you want to move on, you have to do something about it.
This week on 60 Minutes, we reported on racial bias in the military. From the rank and file to officers, African Americans in the Air Force say they are treated differently than their white counterparts. Major Daniel Walker is an F22 pilot. On an Air Force program called Real Talk, hosted by Lieutenant General Brad Webb, he read comments made by other black pilots.
I have a couple of quotes I want to read off. My fighter experience was the most demoralizing experience in my life, and I've been homeless. Second is, to be yourself and thrive in a fighter squadron as a black man is an oxymoron. Either conform or fail. These are my friends. These are my brothers. And my sisters, actually.
Walker sat down with us to share his story.
This story is not uncommon. I could very easily attribute this interaction to that action on my part. But when you compare stories from people you've never met, and they're almost identical, down to the individual and down to the comment, you start to realize these are not singular events in one person's life.
Walker grew up in Dallas. His family told stories of his great-uncle, Norman Scales, a Tuskegee airman who earned a Distinguished Flying Cross for combat missions during World War II.
At 6 years old, to have your dad's uncle be a Tuskegee airman and see the movies and hear about Uncle Scales, he's got a street named after him in Austin. Your family can't help but talk about him. And when I was born and they saw things in me, I felt at a very early age those hopes start to transition to my shoulders. He flew fighters and he changed the trajectory of my family's history. So that's what I'm going to do.
Determined to follow in those footsteps, Walker went to the Air Force Academy and from there to pilot training. Had you been told what to expect at flight school?
Unfortunately, yes. We've had alumni come back, black pilots who'd gone through pilot training. The story was, you're going to go. They're going to treat you poorly. When you wash out, they're probably not going to keep you in the Air Force. So if you go, don't go trying to fly fighters. But in the grand scheme of things, probably don't go.
How did that play in your decision about whether to go?
Well, in my mind, I have to prove it can be done, and then prove it can be repeatable.
Walker excelled at flight school and earned a coveted assignment to fly the Air Force's top-of-the-line F22 stealth fighter. So you go to F22 school?
Yes, sir.
What was that like?
It was a blast. It was the most fun I'd ever had in my entire life. Seeing things and doing things with so much power underneath you and behind you and around you, it's surreal.
Did you feel your race going through the F22 training?
Not initially. I got feedback at the end of this course, however, that it was very evident that I was having a good time and maybe I shouldn't have been. Or I talked too much. I started to realize that maybe there was something more to this. Things like, if you don't assimilate, we will weed you out. Or I have to ask myself, is this a me thing or is this something else? And that takes a lot of energy to carry that question mark around with you.
After his training, Walker joined an F-22 squadron in Langley, Virginia. Did you feel like you belonged?
I did, initially. I did.
Initially?
You start to hear feedback like, he's too quiet. It seems like he thinks he's too good to be here or too good for this place. Then you try to be a different form of quiet. Or the way he walks is intimidating.
After 11 years as an Air Force officer, Walker decided it was time to move on.
I had to really start taking seriously my happiness, my well-being. Ask myself, am I willing to continue fighting uphill and chance going back to a squadron where I have to manage myself this way and sacrifice these things personally? Will I get anywhere?
Walker's departure leaves the Air Force with fewer than 50 black fighter pilots. Lieutenant General Brad Webb.
It's a loss for the Air Force. He was an incredible pilot, incredible officer, outstanding officer for us, but he served our nation well.
Walker has been accepted at Harvard Law School.
That flag still means a ton to me. I have something unique to add to my country in a different plane. My decision to go to law school, which is what I have planned next for myself, centers around that. How can I take everything I've experienced here to include these interviews in this moment in time and channel it, this energy, toward affecting change? If I'm going to do anything with the rest of my life, I think it's going to be that. It has to be that.